Hey, good morning, guys. Happy Winning Wednesday to you. It is Halloween, guys. It is the day for all the kids to look adorable and trick or treat, and we hope that everybody has a safe day. But we want to talk about something really spooky, and that is we are going to talk about estate planning, guys. It's so important that we have the ability to make sure that you are going to be for investment. Last week, we talked about how it's very important to make sure that you are in communication and talk about protecting your assets. So, guys, you got to be able to have that ability to truly protect your property and your family's interest in that property. Otherwise, your state, your local municipalities will and counties will fight you on that. So I have a special guest, Phil, the Terminator Boggess, is with us. He is attorney, estate planner, a financial planner extraordinaire. He is going to be actually joining us through the entire month of November, where he's going to be talking about special topics throughout the entire month for our Wisdom Wealth Wednesday segments. So, with all that being said, thank you, Phil, for taking your Wednesday morning and your time to educate us and empower us on how we can protect our properties into the future. So, guys, I say it enough, enough, enough. I tell my clients independently one on one, and I'm also telling you, the live public watching. You guys, it's not just as simple as telling your child or your grandchildren or whatever it is, or even your husband or your wife, your significant other, that I'm leaving the property to you, and that is going to be sufficient proof that you own the property when that person passes on. You got to show it in writing, guys. And that's the importance of estate planning and why we are having Phil come online with us to talk more about that. So, with all that being said, thank you so much, Phil, for joining us. And I'm going to let you have the floor.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've had a number of different situations like that. I mean, we talked about this one, and we end up in a variety of times in your life where you've got all these plans, and this is how I want it all to happen, but you just don't go through the right steps, and it's not going to happen. So, like when you were talking about when your client was saying, "Oh yeah, my dad died. He said it was mine." Well, there's something called title, and you can go look up what title is on all the on your property, and you can see who owns it. And if there isn't something recorded on that title saying it's going to go to somebody else later, whether it's transfer on death deed or it's joint ownership or something else, it's not going to go that way. And actually, it's going to go through a process called probate to make sure we get it all there, which I'm going to talk about probate in a second. But there's another time when things happen. What happens if during your life you can't handle your own affairs anymore? I have a friend who luckily we had everything in order, so I just had to work on helping sell the house afterwards. But they had a couple properties. One of them was an investment property, and they needed to sell one that was in his wife's name or joint. I don't remember if it was joint or his wife's name, but she would have had to sign off on selling it. But her health was to a point where she couldn't. So, and they needed the money to pay for treatment, all sorts of things to make sure they could get her, the care that she needed. But luckily, we had a power of attorney, because if we didn't, we would have had to go into court and get him named as his guardian and to sell that. And that was like an emergency type thing where we needed to have it happen fast, and we could because we had the right document in order beforehand. I had another client who, she was sitting there. She handled her family's affairs for 50 years. They were married. It was probably even over 50 years. And then all of a sudden, one day, the insurance company said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I can't talk to you without your husband's consent about your health insurance, his health insurance plan." She's like, but I'm his wife. I've been his wife 50 years. This is what, well, law has it now. There's protected health information, and they couldn't share it anymore. So we had to actually bring him in front of the judge, go in, show everybody, here he is, here he's incompetent, and, please name her as his guardian. Now, I mean, even during the process, he took his hat off and put it on the bench, was batting it back and forth like it was like a little hockey puck or something. It's pretty cute. But she and her daughter, or his daughter, their daughter, was devastated because they were so embarrassed by his behavior. It didn't bother me. It didn't bother the judge. Actually, I was really happy that he was enjoying himself and having a good time and a happy guy. But you know what? It was embarrassing to them because they knew that wouldn't be normally behavior you'd have in front of a judge. But everybody knew. I mean, his mental state is like a kid, like a 2-year-old at this point. He doesn't understand a lot, and he just goes, "Hey, this looks like fun. Let's do it."
Sure.
So I mean, that's that. And now the worst part about it is they have to pay a fee to an insurance company for a bond every year, and they're already very strapped with cash. And every year we have to say how every dollar they spend of his pension and his Social Security, which is probably 80% of their income into their house, how every dollar is spent. And if it doesn't fit in the budget that's been approved, like they need a new roof on the house, I have to go in and ask the court to approve it before they can even go ahead and spend the money. And so this court, and she's all upset. She was all like, I betrayed him. I betrayed my marriage. I'm like, you didn't. This is all the only option we had. You're doing the best you can. And it took a long time of talking to her and getting her kids to talk to her, to explain to her, there's nothing else we could do. This was our only option, or else she could never know anything about his health, and and they'd be flying under the radar, and hopefully nothing ever happens where she'd have to talk on his behalf. So it was pretty crazy that we have to go there. So we have to make these plans early to make sure we can handle these things. Someone's going to be named to handle these things. Financially, I told you about the one couple, and then this is on the health side of things. And the solution to all of it is a power of attorney, a properly executed one, having it done while you have the capacity and you understand what's going on to make sure we can handle these affairs during your life.
Okay.
Because at some point, most of us, I mean, we all know people who had Alzheimer's or whatever else. And, it happens to a lot of people these days. So we want to make sure we're playing ahead of time.
Well, you also want to protect yourself at any time and juncture, right? I'm sorry to cut you off, Phil. I want to make a couple of points here.
Right.
The whole thing is that you never know what could happen. I mean, naturally, as someone gets older, that could possibly happen with dementia, Alzheimer's, or just even getting older, and then health is failing. And so now you need somebody else to help you. But just even as simple as we could be 15, we could be 22. I mean, there was the gentleman who was 22 years old, and he was literally dragged to his death. Somebody hit him coming out of a Subway sandwich shop, and he got dragged for a mile to his death. And what if this person had had perfect health, no health challenges, I'm sure, and then something like that happened. But let's say he owned property, guys, and unfortunately, because he never assumed or never even thought that he would have died at age 22 or 24, whatever it was, now he's passed on. Now his real estate and all his inventory of real estate or just assets has now become a property of the state. Now the family who has first consideration or priority, you would think you have now to fight the courts to go through the process to get what you feel is entitlement to you. So that's why we always want to talk about the importance of having everything in writing. No matter how old you are, you got to, and if you have property and assets, you must leave a will and have it protected so that your interest and your family's interest is protected, because again, you never know, guys. So that's why I want to make that statement so people do understand it can happen at any time, and we need to make sure that we are protecting you. So thanks again for allowing me to speak, and if there's anything you can add,
that's okay.
Please let us know.
Yeah, that's actually right where I was going with this next one. Is like the one of my clients, their neighbor's kid who's in his 20s is functioning, but he had some weird freaky fall while he was at college. I think he was at college. Maybe it was just during whatever. But he was about that age. He was low 20s, upper teens. So he's an adult, and something happened. So now he's kind of like highly functioning, but he had some brain damage. And so they actually had to drag him to court too, because you don't know when things are going to happen. There's auto accidents every day, or like you mentioned, this guy was hit by a car and dragged down the street. I mean, if he hadn't done anything and he needed actual medical attention, no one was legally able to make decisions for them either. So we have to have all this in order. And then you mentioned the second part. The state doesn't actually own the property, and they're not fighting. But what you're fighting is what the state has decided is going to happen for you. They have rules of how everything's going to go if you don't if you haven't decided on your own. And deciding on your own is that will. That will is the directions of the court to let them know how to change the ownership of the property. Because once you die, your property doesn't have an owner anymore. And so now the court, which is a probate court in the county where you died, and if you own properties in multiple counties, you may have to open probate in multiple counties, in multiple states. And, it happens all the time, especially for investors, or real estate where you have maybe a second home for a vacation home. And we have to try to get all of that transferred to the way you want to transfer it. And, it's a whole court proceeding. When there's court proceedings, there's records that all have to get filed in the court. So everybody gets to know everything that's going on there. Sometimes if you don't have your will done the right way, you have to post a bond, which is with a bond worth 1.5 times the value of the property in there, which that can get expensive. I have one that had to pay a bond of, $3,000, $3,500 a year. And it took a while to get it all done. So it ended up being 3 years. I mean, that's 12 grand. It was just. So, there's a lot of steps along the way. I had another. So they argued over things. Basically, one was seemed like they were trying to take advantage of the other one. But we ended up being in court, I don't remember how long, but ended up being, by the end, 4 lawyers involved. One for the estate, which was me, one for each beneficiary, and then we had to name another third-party guy to come in to help take care of things because there was tension always over everything that happened. And I don't know what the total estate was probably $300,000 worth of assets. I'd say $100,000 of it ended up being an attorney's fees, or maybe $80,000. But it's still a lot of it for what was there, because a lot of fighting, a lot of bad planning. But so what we did learn with all this is that you have property, and in Illinois, it's real estate and or $100,000 worth of assets. The value, even if you have loans on it, doesn't matter. It's just what the value of it is.
Okay.
You have to go through probate, which means maybe you have to pay fees. You certainly have to pay court fees. You probably have to pay lawyers' fees. And maybe you have to pay a bond, depending if you've waived it or not in your will. But we can avoid that. And we can avoid all that with trusts. And the trusts can allow for other things too, because what happens if the assets were going to go to a minor? Okay, it'll be held in a custodian from the minor until they're 18. Who wants to give their 18-year-old $500,000? Right?
Okay, yes, you're right. So now let me
if it's $5,000 or whatever, not a big deal. But if it's a lot of money, then that money could probably get spent better than that person would, unless they're very mature.
Okay.
And the next thing you know, they got a $150,000 car. Craziness. They can't afford it either. Insurance to make sure that things get handled in the way that you want it to. Another problem that we had in one of the estates for 3 years was because I was trying to fix a problem where money was going to a daughter who actually happened to be, I don't know, she was 30 in her car crash. She's a little bit younger than me when, her dad died. And she's unfortunately living on Medicaid and in a home. And if we gave her the money, we were afraid that she'd get kicked out of her home. And we were afraid that, she'd have to move out, move back in, go private pay somewhere else, or find a way just to turn the money over to the state to pay for the care she's already had. But luckily, we were able to sit there and get the judge to go along with it, where we just had it all put into a special trust for her, a different one, where, it can be spent on the things that Medicaid doesn't pay for. They got her a new laptop, she can use, and, a DVD and some videos for her room and things like that. She can buy some extra clothes, things that aren't always available through Medicaid, but, are something that you really to live a decent life, and some of the stuff, especially the clothes and the toiletries and things like that, you need the stuff, and someone would either have to
Mhm.
be giving it to you, or at least this way we could use money that was intended to be used for it. If there's anything left after or at the end, it'll go help pay for whatever the state has paid for over the years. But at least we got to use it for now. But if we had it all going originally with trusts and everything, we could actually even prevent it from going there in the first place, not have to go through any of this hassle, not publish everything where it all ends up in court records, not pay those fees to the courts, not do any of that. And it's all there, and you can put extra strings on it. I mean, most people I have won't give the money to the kids till they're 25, 30, 35. I have some that'll never give it to the kids. They only get a little trickle the whole time because they know because that kid's old enough that they know how they're going to be, and they're not responsible. They're a little too charitable, basically. Someone asks them for money and they give it away.
Sure. Sure.
But
Mhm.
it's not necessarily silly spending, but they're easy to get conned into. Hey, I need money for whatever,
Well, I
and
mean, it's just that, I mean, just even I remember a situation where a client of mine, her son just went off to college this past fall. And so he had a credit card and he just felt that, well, I have a credit card and let me just go ahead and buy all my friends' lunch on the credit card. And, you just don't think to that degree. We're like, okay, you
wow.
have to learn to control. But I wanted to ask some questions as you were talking, as things are popping up in my head, and it's happening a lot, guys, where um, I have boyfriends and girlfriends buying properties together. Is there anything that prevents, you think about power of attorney, you think of familial, you watch TV and you talk about if somebody's in the hospital and they ask, are you family? Well, what happens in the case when a boyfriend, girlfriend, or, a couple buys property, but they're not legally married? What happens in that case if something happens? Is still can do a trust? Can you still do a power of attorney without a familial relationship?
Absolutely. You can name anybody your beneficiary. You can name whoever you want as trustees. I have some where they're business partners who end up being the trustees on things together, joint. But I mean, also in that trust, it's spelling out what happens in all these situations. One of the hardest things with non-married people doing it is they essentially get a divorce when they break up because now they own stuff together and now they have to find a way to the bottom of it. But you're not already involved in a court proceeding when you just break up, whereas a divorce you need a court proceeding to actually terminate the marriage.
Okay,
But so now we have to sit there and go, oh, what happens to this property that both of us own? I
correct.
mean, if it's easy, and they're civil about it, and they can sell it, both will move out, they sell it and split the proceeds. But even then, someone will say, but yeah, I was paying that mortgage. You weren't paying that mortgage. And there's a lot of things where I was paying more the whole time of all of our expenses than you were. I put more into it, or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of reasons why there'd be arguments later, where if you go into it's anything, if you go into it with a better plan at the beginning and explain and decide what you're going to do in different situations, well, hey, you've already made the agreements. Now it's more of enforcing this agreement unless something really crazy happened that makes it to, where it's unfair. But, if reason, because most of the time when you get in emotional states like that, people aren't thinking clearly. People aren't as reasonable. People are all thinking they're getting screwed in the deal. So
Yeah,
they gotta go and fight back, some
yeah,
more. So, it just gets ugly and gets ugly fast. And once you get people, have to get all sorts of lawyers, judges, and all that involved, it gets expensive too for
exactly,
everybody.
exactly. Yeah,
Where,
that's a key. I mean, I've consulted with many people who've come to me and asked me about a situation, again, family, and like I had a family where I believe it was, I think it was like three granddaughters and a son. And two of the granddaughters' mother was still alive, but the mother was a troublemaker, or at least labeled as a troublemaker. So that mother wrote off that daughter, but gave the remaining part of her estate, deeded it or willed it to her granddaughters instead. So it was not a lot of money in the estate, but they were steadily fighting amongst each other. And I'm like, guys, if you guys don't stop fighting amongst each other and at least sit down And at the end of the day, they kept talking about my grandmother would not have liked this. Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And what happens? I basically told them, if you guys don't stop fighting, the court and the fees or the attorneys will take it all. And then all that fighting would have gone to nothing. And let's be real, at the end of the day, if this is all about your grandmother's memory, stop fighting, guys. And so in that case, if grandmother had the ability to have estate planning done or at least a will, then all of this could have been resolved, guys, and it would have been just you moved on with a little chunk of the piece of pie and continue to live grandma's memory and move on. But now you continue to fight each other. You can go to court and fight each other. Now, again, the courts take all of that money, and now you're going to be left with nothing. So, again, the importance of making sure that you successfully plan out your future. And the estate is not just about death, guys. It's just about in case that something happens, we have to do something about dissolving or getting selling the real estate and assets. Then there's a way or a direction, if you will, to help you do that. So anything else you can add, Phil?
Yeah, actually, there's a couple. You reminded me of a couple stories I read in I think it was an Illinois State Bar Association article. It was number of years ago, but still, it gives the idea. There were a couple estates where they were arguing, and one was over like a glass bowl. I'm not even going to call it crystal. It may have been, but I mean, it could have been something you could go buy at Hobby Lobby or Michael's or something like that. But it was always used at, like the punch was in it on the table at Thanksgiving every year or whatever it was. It was very sentimental. Well, they're arguing just coming out of some here, like a sort of like negotiation type hearing in a lawyer's office. There are probably multiple lawyers involved in all this. So they came out and someone got so pissed, they slammed it on the ground.
Oh my.
Yeah. Well, whatever you're arguing, you just paid who knows how much per hour for all those lawyers in there, and now the thing doesn't even exist. And then even the sad and crazier thing is, in that same article, they mentioned where someone got so pissed they shot the other person's dog. Isn't it? I mean, it's crazy. People, when you have money and all this stuff, it gets crazy, and everybody comes out thinking they deserve a piece and everything. And if you just have it spelled out, you know what? Unless there's something really crazy going on, which would be undue influence. If someone was living with someone for a long time and then all of a sudden everybody else gets cut off, it gets a little fishy. But then again, you have to wonder, hey, you know what? This one person gave all the support for all these years, so maybe it was intended that way. It's a hard argument and very difficult to deal with. But unless you see something happening like that, I mean, I got a call one time where some strangers came and ended up owning everything for some lady, and I guess these people had a history of it, so it's pretty clear what was happening. They just went and scammed old people who were living by themselves. But that all happens. The other thing you have to worry about in planning is, so we said, what happens if something happens during your life? What happens if you need long-term care, nursing home, anything along those lines? It's expensive. And you know what? If all of your assets go to it and it's just you, it'll stink because, you'd rather have had it go to your kids than in your grandkids rather than going to, especially when you've paid your whole life into the system. You've got your taxes coming out to pay for some help when you're in this situation. But you don't qualify as an individual till you're down to $2,000 to your name before they do it. So basically, it's all gone. And if you're a couple, you don't qualify till the person in there gets $50 a month, period. It's all the income they can keep. The person at home can keep $30,000, which I'm sure you all know that $30,000 in the Chicago area is nothing. You're not going to, there's places where you have $10,000 property taxes where, and they want to raise them again, but that's a whole different story. And then, yeah, and then you get $100,000. So if you're paying $90,000, which is the national average for nursing home care, and you have to spend everything down, you're only allowed to keep $30,000 to live on, and $100,000 in your house and car and some personal items. The person at home is gonna go broke and gonna go broke quickly. And so they'll be left at home with nothing essentially, having to sell the house, spend that down. It's just an unfortunate circumstance where that planning is a little harder. It's a little further looking. I mean, we got to look at least 5 years in advance before we're in that situation or come up with solutions for it. But it's something to be aware of, especially as people are getting older. I mean, it's kind of hard to do it with younger people because there's some control of your own money. that you have to deal with. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you're getting to that point and you start seeing health going downhill, you're going to want to make sure you don't leave that spouse at home broke, because, I
Exactly.
mean, that would be completely unfortunate. I mean, as I said, if you spent all your money on your care, whatever, it was only you. Some people don't get it, but then someone's living a miserable life because we didn't care for it and do
Sure.
the right things, whether it's insurance or planning, whatever it is. So
Okay.
that's the other one. I mean, the key to all of this and pretty much everything is look at it and try to make a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, you're flying by the seat of your pants. You know, your options are diminished, and you're probably not making the best decisions, because most people in stressful situations aren't always making the best decision. They think they are. They're not trying to make bad ones, but reactionary decisions usually are not well thought out.
Mm-hmm.
And you might hit it right and get it right, but you know, there's a lot of chance that you won't too. Whereas if you made a plan beforehand, here's my strategy, what I'm going to do, it makes it a lot easier to handle things when it happens, especially knowing people to call who aren't emotionally involved in the situation, who can help bring you through the situation.
Okay. Well, we've gotten a lot of great information, and Phil has been a font of knowledge, and I want to definitely let you guys know a couple of things. Phil has a promotion or an offer that he does for my clients or people who are looking to be more intrigued about looking into estate planning. So, Phil, would you like to talk about our shower cake opportunity for
Sure.
people?
Sure. Put down in the bottom, I will create a power of attorney for healthcare. Like one, I'll even do both couples. So like if you need it for your, especially for your elderly or your kids or somebody else that you're trying to take care of and make sure you're taken care of, and you need it with this power of attorney, make sure you can in case they can't give permission anymore. Put like a hashtag POMS. I'll, I'll keep checking it and I'll get these things done. And this, I'll let this promotion go through the end. We'll give a complimentary power of attorney, which is about $350 value for people if they just put this down, set everything up to make sure we get that done. So at least for healthcare decisions, someone's there and able to do it. And you don't have to go for court.
Okay, awesome. So this is, guys, it's a gift to you of value that we're making sure that we want to make sure your assets and your interests are protected. Okay. So Phil, how do they get a hold of you? And one more thing, guys, we kind of tapped into this at the end of our presentation. Phil is going to be on on my show for the next month. Every Wednesday, we're going to talk about various different topics as it relates to health, legal, real estate, wealth, you name it. But we're going to talk about one of the topics, and we'll get you the schedule of topics by the end of tomorrow, and you'll see what's going to be happening for the next, I think, 4 Wednesdays or 5 Wednesdays that Phil will be talking about things. One of the topics will be about how to make sure you're not going to be bled dry and have seeing red instead of green after new nursing homes are involved. So, but with all that being said, Phil, it's been a phenomenal opportunity to have this time with you, and I'm sharing with the people. We've had some great people, new people coming online, and they want to be learning. So this has been a great topic, and we want to continue to let them know. So how can they get a hold of you, Phil?
So first of all, if you just put that hashtag POA in here, I'll reach out to you. I'm working on, I'm probably bouncing around right now. I'm putting in my phone number, if I can remember what it is. And then my email address can be in there. So my phone number is 630-429-9650. My email is phil@lawtpb.com. Go ahead and shoot me a message. I'll get back to you and talk to you about it. Or the easiest way in here, if you just right now write a hashtag POA, I'll find them and reach out to you, probably like through a message, but then I'll move it over to email pretty fast because I don't check my messenger stuff that often.
All right. Well, guys, you heard it. If you're interested in a power of attorney and talking more to Phil, do what he said, put hashtag POA. He'll reach out to you one-on-one and be able to get you set up with everything into your future. Thanks again, guys, for joining me. As you know, it's Wisdom Wednesday segment, and we definitely are here to provide you the education to empower you so that you can protect yourself into the future. Phil, thanks so much again. We'll see you next week. And we will then here provide you again the list of the topics we'll be talking about. And you will also be able to catch us on our YouTube channel, my YouTube channel. And so you can continue to watch more of the videos that are in the library offered to you as opportunities for more knowledge. So with that being said, it is a little after 9:30. Again, Phil, thanks so much. Guys, thanks so much for following me. If there is anybody you feel that is needed to see this information, please share with them or tag them on here and we will take care of them. Again, guys, thanks so much. Happy Halloween. Stay safe out there, guys. And
Thanks, Wendy.